The Saca. A Saca was the term used in Persian and Sanskrit sources for the Scythians, a large group of Eastern Iranian nomadic tribes on the Eurasian Steppe. Modern scholars usually use the term Saca to refer to Iranians of the Eastern Steppe and the Tarim Basin.René Grousset wrote that they formed a particular branch of the Scytho-Sarmatian family, originating from nomadic Iranian peoples of the northwestern steppe in Eurasia, in the Tarim Basin and Taklamakan desert region of northwest China. They founded the settlements of Khotan and Kashgar, as well as the Kingdom of Khotan that was at various times a vassal to greater powers, such as the Han and Tang dynasties of Imperial China. Usage of name. Modern debate about the identity of the Saca is partly from ambiguous usage of the word by ancient non-Saca authorities. According to Herodotus, the Persians gave the name Saca to all Scythians. However, Pliny the Elder claims that the Persians gave the name Saka only to the Scythian tribes nearest to them. The Scythians to the far north of Assyria were also called the Saka by the Persians. The Assyrians of the time of Esarhaddon record campaigning against a people they called in the Akkadian the Ashkuza or Ishhaza. However, modern scholarly consensus is that the Saca language, ancestor to the Pamir languages in northern India and Khotanese in Xinjiang, China, belongs to the Scythian languages. Another people, the Gimiri, who were known to the ancient Greeks as the Sumerians, were closely associated with the Sakas. In ancient Hebrew texts, the Ashkuza are considered to be a direct offshoot from the Gimiri. The Saca were regarded by the Babylonians as synonymous with the Gimiri. Both names are used on the trilingual Behistun inscription, carved in 515 BC on the order of Darius the Great. The Behistun inscription initially only gave one entry for Saca. They were however further differentiated later into three groups. The Saca Saca with pointy hats, caps. The Saca Varga, interpreted as Ha-Oma drinking Saca, but there are other suggestions. Ham means are an Indo-European group of languages from which Homo is derived, and Virga means division in Sanskrit, making Saca who lives here with us. The Saca Saca beyond the sea, a name added later after Darius's campaign into western Scythia north of the Danube. The Saca Saca beyond Sugda, an additional term found in two inscriptions elsewhere. The term was used by Darius for the people who formed the limits of his empire at the opposite end to Kush, therefore should be located at the eastern edge of his empire. The Saca were the Western Scythians or Sarmatians. Both the Saca and Saca Varga are thought to be located in Central Asia east of the Caspian Sea. Saca Varga is considered to be the same as Amurgens, the Saca tribe in closest proximity to Bactria and Sogdiana. It has been suggested that the Saca Varga may be the Saca Sugdam. Therefore Saca Varga is argued by some to be located further east than the Saca perhaps at the Pamirs or Xinjiang, although Jaxartes is considered to be the more likely location given that the name says beyond Sogdiana rather than Bactria. In the modern era, the archaeologist Hugo Winkler was the first to associate the Sacas with the Scythes. J.M. Cook, in the Cambridge History of Iran, states, the Persians gave the single name Saca both to the nomads whom they encountered between the Hunger Steppe and the Caspian, and equally to those north of the Danube and Black Sea against whom Darius later campaigned, and the Greeks and Assyrians called all those who were known to them by the name Scuthi. Saka and Scythi evidently constituted a generic name for the nomads on the northern frontiers. Conversely, the political historian B.N. Mukherjee has claimed that ancient Greek and Roman scholars believed that while all Sakai were Scythians, not all Scythians were Sakai. Persian sources often treat them as a single tribe called the Saca, but Greek and Latin texts suggest that the Scythians were composed of many subgroups. Modern scholars usually use the term Saca to refer to Iranian-speaking tribes who inhabited the Eastern Steppe and the Tarim Basin. History. The Saca people were an Iranian people who spoke a language belonging to the Iranian branch of the Indo-European languages. They are known to the ancient Greeks as Scythians and are attested in historical and archaeological records dating to around the 8th century BC. In the Achaemenid era, Old Persian inscriptions found at Persepolis, dated to the reign of Darius I. The Saca are said to have lived just beyond the borders of Sogdiana. Likewise, an inscription dated to the reign of Xerxes I has them coupled with the Dai people of Central Asia. The contemporary Greek historian Herodotus noted that the Achaemenid Persians called all of the Iranian Scythian peoples as the Saca. Greek historians read of the wars between the Saca and the Medes, as well as the wars against Cyrus the Great of the Persian Achaemenid Empire, where Saca women were said to fight alongside the men. According to Herodotus, Cyrus the Great confronted the Massagetæ, a people related to the Saca, while campaigning to the east of the Caspian Sea and was killed in the battle in 530 BC. Darius the Great also waged wars against the eastern Sakas, who fought him with 3 armies led by 3 kings according to Polyaenus. In 520–519 BC, Darius I defeated the Saca Tigrakada tribe and captured the king Skunka. The territories of Saca were absorbed into the Achaemenid Empire as part of Khorasmia that included much of Amu Darya and Seir Darya, and the Saca then supplied the Persian army with large number of mounted bowmen in the Achaemenid Wars. They were also mentioned as among those who resisted Alexander the Great's incursions into Central Asia. The Saca were known as the Sai in ancient Chinese records. These records indicate that they originally inhabited the Ia and Chu river valleys of modern Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. In the Chinese Book of Han, the area was called the Land of the Sai, i.e. the Saca. The exact date of the Saca's arrival in the valleys of the rivers Ia and Chu in Central Asia is unclear. Perhaps it was just before the reign of Darius I. Around 30 Saca tombs in the form of kurgans have also been found in the Tian Shan area dated to between 550–50 BC. Indications of Saca presence have also been found in the Tarim Basin region, possibly as early as the 7th century BC. The Saca were pushed out of the Ia and Chu river valleys by the Indo-European Eurasian, thought by some to be Tocharians. An account of the movement of these people is given in Sima Qian's Shiji. The Eurasian, who originally lived between Tangrita and Dunhuang of Gansu, China, were assaulted and forced to flee from the Hexi corridor of Gansu by the Mongolic forces of the Xiongnu ruler Modu Chani, who conquered the area in 177–176 BC. In turn, the Eurasian were responsible for attacking and pushing the Sai west into Sogdiana, where around 140 and 130 BC the latter crossed the Seir Darya into Bactria. The Saca also moved southwards towards to the Pamirs and northern India, where they settled in Kashmir, and eastwards to settle in some of the oasis city-states of Tarim Basin sites like Yanshi and Kouachi. The Eurasian, themselves under attacks from another nomadic tribe, the Wusun, in 133–132 BC, moved again from the Ia River and Chu river valleys and occupied the country of Daxia or Bactria. The ancient Greco-Roman geographer Strabo noted that the four tribes that took down the Bactrians in the Greek and Roman account, the Asioi, Paesionoi, Tokaroi and Sakarasli, came from land north of Sirdarya where the Iali and Chu valleys are located. It may not be simple to identify these four tribes, but Sakarasli may indicate an ancient Saka tribe. The Tokaroi is possibly the Eurasian, and while the Asioi had been proposed to be groups such as the Wusun or Alans, Grousset wrote of the migration of the Saca. The Saca, under pressure from the Uachi, overran Sogdiana and then Bactria, though taking the place of the Greeks. Quote, then, thrust back in the south by the Uachi, the Saca occupied the Saca country, Sakistana, whence the modern Persian Sistan. Quote, according to Harold W. Bailey, the territory of Draniana became known as Land of the Sakas, and was called Sakistana in the Persian language of contemporary Iran. In Armenian as Sakistan, with similar equivalents in Pahlavi, Greek, Sogdian, Syriac, Arabic, and the Middle Persian tongue used in Turfan, Xinjiang, China. This is attested in a contemporary Kharosthi inscription found on the Mathura Lion capital belonging to the Saka kingdom of the Indo-Scythians in northern India. Roughly the same time the Chinese record that the Saka had invaded and settled the country of Jaiban. Migrations of the 2nd and 1st century BCE have left traces in Sogdia and Bactria, but they cannot firmly be attributed to the Saka. Similarly with the sites of Sirkap and Taxila in ancient India, the rich graves at Tilu-Tepa in Afghanistan are seen as part of a population affected by the Saka. Indo-Scythians. Tadej Sulemirski notes that the Saka also migrated to North India, where Rajendra Rishi, an Indian linguist, identified linguistic affinities between Indian and Central Asian languages, which further lends credence to the possibility of historical Sakan influence in North India. According to historian Michael Machina, the Abhira tribe were a Saka people cited in the Gunda inscription of the western satrapa Rudrasimha I, dated to 181 CE. Kingdom of Khotan. The Kingdom of Khotan was a Saka city-state on the southern edge of the Tarim Basin. As a consequence of the Han-Urmia War spanning from 133 BC to 89 AD, the Tarim Basin region of Xinjiang in northwest China, including Khotan and Kashgar, fell under Han Chinese influence beginning with the reign of Emperor Wu of the Han dynasty. During the later Tang dynasty, the region once again came under Chinese suzerainty with the campaigns of conquest by Emperor Taizong of Tang. For the late 8th to 9th centuries, the region changed hands between the Chinese Tang Empire and the rival Tibetan Empire. However, by the early 11th century the region fell to the Muslim Turkic peoples of the Karakhanid Khanate, which led to both the Turkification of the region as well as its conversion from Buddhism to Islam. Archaeological evidence and documents from Khotan and other sites in the Tarim Basin provided information on the language spoken by the Saka. The official language of Khotan was initially Gandhari Prakrit, written in the Kharosthi script, and coins from Khotan dated to the 1st century bear dual inscriptions in Chinese and Gandhari Prakrit, indicating links of Khotan to both India and China. Surviving documents, however, suggest that an Iranian language was used by the people of the kingdom for a long time. 3rd century AD documents in Prakrit from nearby Shanshan record the title for the king of Khotan as Hanajar, a distinctively Iranian-based word equivalent to the Sanskrit title Senapati, yet nearly identical to the Khotanese Sakahinis, are attested in later Khotanese documents. This, along with the fact that the king's recorded regnal periods were given as the Khotanese Kaisuna, implies an established connection between the Iranian inhabitants and the royal power, according to the professor of Iranian studies Ronald E. Emmerich. He contended that Khotanese Saca language royal rescripts of Khotan dated to the 10th century makes it likely that the ruler of Khotan was a speaker of Iranian. Furthermore, he elaborated on the early name of Khotan. The name of Khotan is attested in a number of spellings, of which the oldest form is Hvatana, in texts of approximately the 7th to the 10th century AD written in an Iranian language itself called Hvatana by the writers. The same name is attested also in two closely related Iranian dialects, Sogdian and Tumshak. Attempts have accordingly been made to explain it as Iranian, and this is of some importance historically. My own preference is for an explanation connecting it semantically with the name Saca, for the Iranian inhabitants of Khotan spoke a language closely related to that used by the Sakas in the northwest of India from the 1st century BC onwards. Later Khotanese Saca language documents ranging from medical texts to Buddhist literature have been found in Khotan and Tumshak. Similar documents in the Khotanese Saca language dating mostly to the 10th century have been found in Dunhuang. Although the ancient Chinese had called Khotan Yushan, its more native Iranian names during the Han period were Jusadana, derived from Indo-Iranian Gostan and Gostana, the names of the town and region around it respectively. Shul Kingdom. Much like the neighboring people of the Kingdom of Khotan, people of Kashgar, the capital of Shul, spoke Saca, one of the Eastern Iranian languages. The earliest mention of the Shul is around 120 BC by Western Han Chinese when they were exploring the borders in the Tarim Basin. In 127 AD, Shul began to pay tribute to the Eastern Han. In 168, following Head's murder of the current ruler, the Han declared war on the Shul, ending in the unsuccessful siege of Shenzhong in 170 AD. By the end of the Eastern Han period, Shul had conquered the city-estates of Shenzhong, Yarkent, Jishi, Kusha, Xiye, and Yinai. However, it formed part of greater empires as a vassal state in its later history. In the 5th century, Shul first came under the influence of the Hephthalite Empire, and then the Gokturks of the early Turkic Khaganate to whom they paid tribute. In the 7th and 8th centuries, Shul was controlled by the Chinese Tang dynasty after their invasion and the formation of the Protectorate of the Western regions and 4 garrisons of Anxi, followed by the Tibetan Empire during the 7th and 8th centuries, and finally the Kara Khanate of the 10th century, a Muslim Turkic power that ushered in the Islamicization and Turkicization of Xinjiang. According to Mahmud al-Kashgari, within Kashgar's vicinity, some non-Turkic languages like the Kanchaki and Sogdian were still used in some areas. It is believed that the Saca language group was what Kanchaki belonged to. It is believed that the Tarim Basin was linguistically Turkified before the 11th century terminated. Language attestations of Saca show that it was an Eastern Iranian language. Both dialects contain many borrowings from the Middle Indo-Aryan Prakrit, but also share features with modern Wakhi and Pashto. The Issyk inscription, a short fragment on a silver cup found in the Issyk kurgan, is believed to be an early example of Saca, constituting one of very few autochthonous epigraphic traces of that language. The inscription is in a variant of the Kharosthi script. Harmatta identifies the dialect as Khotanese Saca, tentatively translating it as, "The vessel should hold wine of grapes, added cooked food, so much to the mortal, then added cooked fresh butter on." The linguistic heartland of the Saca language was the Kingdom of Khotan, which had 2 dialects, corresponding to the major settlements at Khotan and Tumshak. The Saca heartland was gradually conquered during the Turkic expansion, beginning in the 4th century, and the area was gradually Turkified linguistically.